Have you ever found yourself in that familiar moment?
Mm-hmm.
You're maybe at a party or, waiting in line somewhere quiet, maybe just sitting on a train next to someone new, and suddenly you kind of want to connect, but your mind just goes, well, completely blank.
Yeah, that happens.
You want to start a conversation, bridge that little gap,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't know where to start, right?
Yep.
Or even how to get past a simple hello.
Right.
That little bit of uncertainty, that hesitation before talking to a stranger, that's pretty universal, I think.
Absolutely. We all feel it sometimes.
But what if those moments weren't just about getting over being shy? What if they were actually about finding something surprisingly deep in just everyday chats?
Interesting.
So this deep dive, it's really designed to go beyond just the basic nice words. We want to offer some real insights and strategies to turn those quick moments into something, well, more meaningful and help you feel more confident doing it.
And what's truly fascinating here is how we often think about small talk. We sometimes dismiss it, right? Like superficial, not important, just filling silence.
Yeah, exactly.
Trivial. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, small talk is, well, it's anything but small, really. It's actually quite sophisticated. It helps things go smoothly socially. It lets you quickly build rapport. And it's kind of the doorway to deeper connections.
The doorway, I like that.
Yeah. It's not about having complex philosophical debates right away. It's more about laying the groundwork, building a bit of trust, understanding, practicing your social skills in a low-pressure way.
Low pressure, that's key.
Absolutely. This basic skill is so important for just, getting along in social situations, meeting new people, expanding your network, and just feeling comfortable, feeling like you belong, especially new places.
Right. Yeah.
It's really where genuine connection often starts.
Exactly. So for you, our listener, the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're exploring how to master small talk with strangers. And we're not just going to give you a list of phrases to memorize. We're really diving deep into the psychology, the sort of subtle dynamics, and how to actually use small talk effectively.
Getting practical.
Yeah, practical. We'll look at a whole stack of insights, try to uncover what really makes conversations flow, and give you some solid strategies.
Good.
Our promise is, well, a clear structure, hopefully an engaging delivery, and a pace that works for you. We'll mix quick takeaways with memorable details, maybe even a few surprising little facts along the way.
Nice.
And by the end of this deep dive, the goal is you'll have real, actionable strategies, ways to break the ice, understand those little social cues, and, importantly, keep conversations going into territory that's actually interesting.
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's unpack this core idea first. What exactly is small talk? When we look at it as something to master, not just, basic politeness.
Right. It's more than just idle chatter.
Yeah, much more. Think of it maybe like a social handshake.
Yeah.
That first little exchange, low stakes, lets two people kind of figure out comfort levels, interest, maybe find some common ground.
A gauge.
Exactly. It's that vital first step before anything deeper happens. Its real purpose isn't about sharing deep secrets, but just making that initial human connection.
Yeah.
Practicing that subtle art of figuring each other out social
Calibration, yeah.
and building a basic level of comfort without the pressure of, diving straight into heavy topics. It's really about skillfully opening a door, like you said, not necessarily about decorating the whole house immediately.
That's a great way to put it. And what's really insightful here is how the benefits of small talk go way beyond just that one conversation.
Oh, yeah.
How so? Well, psychologically, it's a really powerful way to overcome what you might call social inertia, that feeling of not wanting to start talking.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
By focusing on simple, relatable topics, the weather, the coffee, whatever, it kind of bypasses that mental overload you can get with complex discussions. So it makes it a really easy entry point for engaging with people.
Okay, makes sense.
It's a low-pressure way to sharpen your active listening skills, get better at thinking on your feet verbally, and even improve how you read nonverbal cues, body language, tone of voice.
So it's like practice for bigger conversations.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, mastering small talk means you're basically building strong social intelligence. You're learning to feel genuinely comfortable in pretty much any social situation.
That sounds incredibly useful.
It is, and you learn fascinating little things about people. You gain practical insights you might not get anywhere else, like maybe you get a weird recipe from someone at the grocery store or a hidden travel tip from someone on the train.
Yeah, that could happen.
It's where knowledge isn't just something you have, it's something you use and experience expand in real-time social situations. You're applying your English skills practically.
Okay, now let's tackle that little voice in the back of our heads, right? That fear. The fear of saying the wrong thing, or those awkward silences, or just being seen as weird or something.
Ah, yes, the fear. Very common.
It's a universal anxiety, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I want to maybe reframe this for you, for our listeners. Most people aren't sitting there judging every single word you say.
That's true. Mostly people just appreciate the effort.
Exactly. They appreciate you trying to connect. The real magic ingredients here aren't about having perfect grammar or super witty jokes.
Yeah.
It's more about just showing genuine politeness, being authentically curious, and simply being willing to participate in the conversation.
Being present.
Yeah, being present. If you approach someone with a friendly, open attitude and ask questions because you're actually interested, the conversation usually finds its way to a comfortable place, naturally. And here's a really crucial point. It's totally okay if a conversation is short. Small talk is meant to be light, exploratory. Don't feel like you have to force it to last forever.
Right, no pressure for a long chat.
None at all. Even a quick, pleasant exchange is a win. It means you made a connection, however brief, and maybe more importantly, you built your own social confidence a little bit more.
Which brings up an important question. How do you actually get past that initial awkwardness? How do you develop that conversational flow?
Good question. What's the secret?
Well, the answer isn't just practice, it's deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice. Okay, tell me more.
Think of it like learning a musical instrument. You don't just play scales over and over randomly, right? You focus on specific techniques, maybe you get feedback, you adjust your approach.
Okay, I see.
It's similar with small talk. It's about consciously trying out simple phrases, maybe experimenting with different ways to start a conversation, and really paying attention to the responses you get.
So learning from each interaction.
Exactly. The more you engage in these casual chats, even if it's just a brief comment or a quick question, the more natural it starts to feel. It becomes less effortful over time.
Makes sense.
And the goal isn't perfection. Nobody expects perfection. It's about connecting effectively and building that solid confidence. Every little interaction, every attempt you make thoughtfully becomes like useful data. It gradually turns those nervous moments into chances for real social connection.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty then. Starting a conversation, that very first step. It sounds almost too simple, but friendly greetings. They're actually really powerful strategic openers.
Absolutely fundamental.
We all know the basics. Hi, how's it going? Or hello, how are you today? If you're being introduced, a simple nice to meet you works perfectly.
Standard stuff.
But these aren't just empty, polite words. They're the initial invitation. They signal, non-verbally, that you're open, you're approachable. It's your first move in seeing if the other person is receptive and setting a positive tone.
Right, and connecting this to the deeper psychology of it, once that friendly greeting has kind of opened the door, the next strategic step is to use what we could call low-threat probes.
Low-threat probes.
Yeah.
Okay, like what?
Basically, just questions about general, non-personal things that almost anyone can answer comfortably. The idea is to lower the perceived risk for both of you.
Make it easy for them to respond.
Exactly. So, things like, what brings you here today? If you're at some kind of event, or are you enjoying this lovely weather if you're outside?
Simple, safe topics.
Yeah, even something like, have you spent much time in this area before? That can be great, especially if you're somewhere new, like a gallery or a cafe you haven't been to.
Okay.
The main point isn't to interrogate them or get personal details. It's just about finding some comfortable common ground, allowing for those short back-and-forth exchanges that build a little bit of ease between you.
You know, I found those initial probes can actually lead to surprisingly nice little chats. I remember when I first moved into my current neighborhood, I was feeling a bit like an outsider, a little nervous about meeting people. And one afternoon, I was walking my dog, and I saw someone else with their dog in the park. And instead of just doing the usual nod and walk past, I took a breath, remember this idea of low-threat probes, and just said something like, your dog looks so happy playing what's their name?
Nice and simple.
Yeah. And the person just instantly smiled, told me the dog's name was Leo. And from there, we just naturally started talking about dogs, sharing funny stories about our pets. It was so easy, no pressure at all, but it felt like a real connection. All from just a quick observation and a low-stakes question.
That's a perfect example. It shows how easy it can be.
Or another time in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I was kind of focused on my laptop, feeling a bit shut off from everything. And the barista, when they handed me my coffee, just asked, "How's your Tuesday shaping up?" Such a small, open-ended question. And I felt myself actually answering honestly, saying it was busy but good. And that simple little interaction made me look up, smile, and just feel a bit more connected to what was going on around me.
It breaks that little bubble we put ourselves in sometimes.
Totally. It just showed how even a tiny moment, started with a general question, can kind of shift your whole mood. These little stories really highlight how just a tiny bit of effort, used strategically, can create these really positive, immediate connections.
And as you listen to these examples, it's really helpful to do some proactive mental rehearsal. Don't just passively listen.
What do you mean?
Actively imagine yourself in similar situations. Ask yourself, okay, how would I start a conversation there? What could I observe? What kind of low-threat question could I ask?
Practice in your head.
Exactly. This active visualization, this sort of rehearsal for spontaneity, it's crucial for really making these strategies stick. The more you mentally practice these openings, the more easily and naturally those phrases will actually pop into your head when you're in a real situation. It helps build that social agility.
Okay, rehearsal for spontaneity. I like that. Now, let's unpack one of the most critical parts of keeping a conversation actually going. Active listening.
Yes, absolutely crucial.
This isn't just, waiting for your turn to talk.
No, not at all.
It's about being deeply engaged, almost empathetic, paying real attention to what the other person is saying, not just the words, but the tone, the pace, the things they don't say.
Reading between the lines a bit.
Yeah. That's how you find new things to ask about, spot their interests, and basically keep the conversation flowing naturally. Like if someone mentions they love historical nonfiction, don't just nod and say, "Oh, nice."
Right. Dig a little deeper.
Exactly. Ask something like, "Oh, what period of history really fascinates you the most and why?" Or maybe, "Do you have a favorite historian you'd recommend?"
Good examples.
That kind of attentive listening doesn't just keep the chat alive. It shows you're genuinely interested. And that's the foundation of any real connection, isn't it?
Absolutely. And building on that, what's truly powerful is using open-ended questions effectively.
The classic advice. Why are they so good?
Well, they're kind of the gold standard because they naturally encourage more than just a yes or no. They invite the other person to talk more, to elaborate, giving them space.
Right, get some talking.
Think about the difference between, say, do you enjoy cooking versus something like, what's your favorite type of food to experiment with cooking? What makes it fun for you?
Okay, yeah, much more to say in response to the second one.
Exactly. The second one doesn't just ask about liking it. It asks why and how, opening up lots of paths for the conversation to go deeper. It also gives you more chances to practice listening and responding.
Good point.
I remember once at the gym, I saw someone who was consistently lifting impressive weights. Instead of just saying, nice workout, which is fine but doesn't go anywhere,
Right.
I asked, what motivated you to really focus on strength training specifically? And that question, moving from the what to the why, opened up this whole backstory about a personal challenge and their passion for it.
Wow.
It turned what could have been just a quick nod into a really interesting conversation about fitness goals and philosophies. It's about inviting them to share their story, not just state a fact.
Inviting a narrative. Okay, I get that. Now, beyond the actual words, there's the whole world of nonverbal communication, right? Body language.
Huge. Absolutely huge.
A simple smile, just a relaxed, genuine smile, can instantly make you seem friendlier, more approachable.
It's disarming, isn't it?
Totally. It's not about a fake, forced grin, just a soft, engaged look. And showing interest with your face, your posture, maybe leaning in slightly, nodding occasionally to show you're following along.
Mirroring their posture a little sometimes too, subtly.
Right. These little cues make the whole thing feel more comfortable, more natural for everyone involved. So what does this all mean? It means your body is talking to. Being genuinely engaged, not trying too hard or being overly expressive, just being present, creates that welcoming space for connection.
And another really smart technique is using the environment around you as a kind of shared anchor for the conversation.
Okay, how does that work?
It's super practical and not intrusive at all. Like if you're both waiting for a delayed flight, you could say something like, quite a long wait, isn't it? Are you heading somewhere exciting?
Turns a shared negative into an opening.
Exactly. Or maybe you're in a busy cafe. What do you think of the coffee here? I'm always looking for a good brew. It invites their opinion based on the shared experience right there.
Okay, using what's around you.
People generally like talking about things they know or experiences they're currently having. It gives them an easy way to share without feeling put on the spot.
Makes sense.
I remember once I was in a coffee shop and I noticed someone totally absorbed in this really sick history book. I just leaned over slightly and said, "That looks like quite an intense read. Any particular period of history got you hooked right now?"
How do they react?
She looked up, a bit surprised maybe, but pleased. And we ended up having this fascinating 20-minute chat about some overlooked historical figures. The shared space and just noticing something specific within it was the perfect starting point.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
And once the conversation actually gets going, it's good to share your own experiences too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not just ask questions.
Oh, definitely. That's where reciprocity comes in, building real connection.
So if someone talks about, say, a trip they took to a national park,
You could say something like, "Oh, that sounds amazing. It reminds me of a hike I took last summer where the views were just incredible." Sharing your own stories, even short ones, turns it from an interview into a balanced conversation.
yeah, makes it feel more equal.
Exactly. I remember at a work event, a colleague was telling me about their recent trip to the mountains. Instead of just listening, I shared a quick story about my own trip to a national park a while back. We ended up laughing about some funny travel mishaps.
Nice.
It helped us connect on a more personal level, moving beyond just work talk. Made the relationship feel more comfortable.
That makes sense. What about compliments? Are they a good tool?
They can be, yes. The art of the genuine compliment is actually a really powerful, though sometimes understated, tool.
Genuine being the key word there.
Absolutely. A well-placed, authentic compliment makes someone feel noticed, feel valued. It creates a positive feeling right away.
So not just nice shoes.
Well, you could, but aiming for more specificity is often better. Or focus on a choice they made instead of just, "Nice shirt, maybe try. I really like the unique pattern on your shirt. Where did you find it?" Or, "That color really suits you."
Ah, okay. More specific.
Yeah, because it acknowledges their personal style or choice. It invites a story, not just a thank you. But again, authenticity is key. Make sure it's sincere, not over the top.
Got it.
I remember meeting a new colleague once, and he was wearing this really cool, unusual watch. I just said, "Hey, that's a really nice watch. Where did you get it?"
Yeah.
He immediately brightened up and told me it was a gift, which led to a whole conversation about gifts and family traditions. Just a simple, sincere observation opened that door.
Okay, now let's talk about that moment we all kind of dread. The awkward silence.
Mm-hmm. The pause.
It happens to everyone, right?
Yeah.
Even the best talkers.
Yeah.
So when you hit that point where no one knows what to say next,
Hmm?
what do? Don't panic?
Definitely don't panic. Don't try to force some random topic either. Think of it as a natural pause, maybe a chance to gently change direction or just make a fresh observation.
Okay.
You can always go back to a neutral, universal topic, like the environment around you or maybe something happening locally.
Like the weather again?
Could be. Or, "Wow, the line seems to be moving really slowly today, doesn't it?" Or maybe, "I heard they're opening that new restaurant nearby. Have you heard anything about it?" These are like low-pressure restart buttons.
Restart buttons, I like that.
I remember being in a supermarket once, stuck in a really long checkout line. I noticed the person ahead of me had this interesting, unusual type of vegetable in their cart.
Okay.
I just commented, "Oh, that looks interesting. I don't think I've seen that before. How do you usually cook it?" She laughed and explained what it was, gave me a quick recipe idea, turned a boring wait into something kind of fun and informative.
Nice. Just from noticing something small.
Exactly. And building on that, the ultimate follow-up strategy isn't really about having a list of questions ready. It's more about cultivating that genuine curiosity and being able to sort of drill down a bit.
Drill down.
Yeah. So if someone says they love hiking, don't just say, "Oh, cool," and move on.
Right. Ask more.
Ask something like, "What's your absolute favorite trail you've ever hiked?" Or, "Have you ever been on a hike that was really challenging, physically or mentally?"
Showing deeper interest.
Precisely. But these kinds of questions show you're truly engaged, you're listening, and they invite the other person to share more about their passion, the details behind their interest. It keeps the conversation rich and flowing into more meaningful areas.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about the principles, the techniques. Let's shift gears now and think about applying these skills in different real-life situations.
Right, putting it into practice.
We've laid the groundwork, how to start, listen, keep things going. Now, how do these refined techniques actually work in different places? How do you navigate various scenarios confidently?
Yeah, because the context matters, doesn't it?
It really does. The real art of small talk is adapting your approach to where you are, finding relevant common ground, and just consistently being approachable, no matter the setting.
Indeed. The true mastery comes from that adaptability, that versatility. Let's start by looking at public and transient spaces. These are places where interactions might be brief, but there are lots of chances for these low-stakes connections.
Okay, like bus stops, supermarkets, coffee shops, waiting rooms.
Exactly, those kinds of places.
So at a bus stop, instead of just saying nice weather, maybe you could observe something like, it's quite a beautiful morning, isn't it? Almost makes waiting for the bus enjoyable.
Adding a little observation.
And if they agree, you could follow up gently with, are you heading somewhere interesting today? It invites a bit more detail, but isn't too pushy.
That's a good, gentle approach. I remember once waiting at a bus stop when it was absolutely pouring rain, like torrential. Oh dear. Instead of just sighing, I turned to the person next to me and said something like, well, this rain certainly has a dramatic flair, doesn't it? Puts the rest of the day in perspective.
Huh. How did they respond?
They laughed, and it led to this nice little chat about crazy weather, unpredictable travel, how you just have to roll with it in the city. I learned they lived nearby and worked as a teacher. It wasn't really about the rain itself, but that shared human experience of dealing with it. And I got to practice my English, too.
That's great. Okay, what about a supermarket? Instead of just asking, are those apples any good? Maybe comment on a bigger picture.
Like how?
Well, if you see someone with a cart full of really fresh, healthy-looking stuff, you could say, wow, it's inspiring to see all that fresh produce. Are you planning on cooking up something special this week?
Shifting from just the item to appreciating their effort or plan. I like that.
Yeah, it invites them to share their enthusiasm, maybe.
Precisely. I once saw someone carefully picking out these specific, kind of exotic-looking mushrooms. I just commented, those look really intriguing. I've always wondered what the best way to prepare them is.
Did they know?
Oh, yeah. They launched into this wonderful explanation, shared a fantastic recipe, and even told me a bit about the cultural background of the dish. It went from just looking at mushrooms to a shared moment of learning something new.
That's fantastic. Okay, coffee shop. Someone's reading a book. Instead of the blunt, is that book good? Maybe something subtler.
Yeah, that can feel a bit like putting them on the spot.
Right. Maybe. That book cover looks really interesting. Is it a genre you usually read, or are you trying something new?
That shows more observation, more curiosity about their choice. I like that. I once saw someone in a coffee shop sketching really intensely in a notebook.
Oh, wow.
I waited for a moment when they paused, leaned over just slightly, and said quietly, your focus is really inspiring. It's rare to see someone so immersed these days. Are you working on something personal, or is it for work?
How did that go?
Really well. They seemed pleased. I'd noticed their concentration respectfully. It led to this great conversation about being creative, finding inspiration in everyday places. It showed me the power of commenting on their engagement with something, not just the thing itself.
Engagement, not just activity. Got it. Okay, let's move on to social and professional settings. Places where the goal is often to build deeper connections, right? Parties, work, maybe even online groups.
Different dynamic here.
So at a party, maybe instead of the direct, how do you know the host? You could try something like, the atmosphere here is really great, isn't it? How's your evening going so far?
Start broader, more general.
Yeah. And if they respond well, then you could gently pivot. I'm curious, how did you first meet Sarah, the host? She always seems to bring together such interesting people. Lets them tell their story more naturally.
That flows much better. I remember being at a work networking event once, feeling a bit lost.
Yeah, those can be tough.
I noticed a small group talking about a recent industry report. I waited for a natural pause, then stepped closer and said, excuse me, I overheard you mentioning the XYZ report, and I found that really interesting too. What are your initial thoughts on how it might impact our sector?
Joining based on shared professional interest. Smart.
Yeah, it immediately put me on common ground, turned an awkward entry into a relevant contribution to their conversation.
That's a great strategy. And this works in the workplace day to day too, right?
Yeah.
Beyond just complaining about the coffee machine.
Definitely. Instead of, this machine is so slow, you could try a bit of humor or observation. This coffee machine has a certain personality, doesn't it? Always gives me an extra minute to think before diving into emails.
Reframing the mundane.
Exactly. It makes it more human, invites a more personal response, or maybe during a team meeting if someone makes a really good point.
Instead of just good point.
Right. You could say, that's a really thought-provoking point you made about specific idea. Could you tell us a bit more about what led you to think about it that way?
Validates their idea and asks for more depth.
Nice.
Fosters collaboration.
Exactly. And in learning environments like a class or a language exchange, The focus is often on shared goals.
Right.
So instead of just, how long have you been studying English? Maybe ask, what's been the most surprising thing you've learned during your English journey so far? Or maybe, what's been the biggest challenge?
Gets a more personal, reflective answer.
Yeah, I found that worked really well in an online language group. I asked, for those who've really improved, what's one aha moment or strategy that truly helped you break through? The answers were amazing, so diverse, insightful, not just about language, but about learning itself, motivation.
That's great. What about leisure activities? Bookstores, museums, parks?
The environment itself is your best friend there. In a bookstore, instead of read any good books lately, try grounding it in the space. I always find it interesting how they arrange the books here. Is there a particular section or author you usually head straight for?
Connects to the shared location, invites a preference.
Yeah. I was in a little independent bookstore once and saw someone with a stack of poetry books. I just said, oh, it's wonderful to see someone diving into poetry. Is there a particular poet whose work is really speaking to you right now?
Yeah.
Led to this lovely chat about favorite poems, hidden gems, all because I focused on their specific choice within that environment.
Okay, makes sense. How about community engagement like volunteering?
Similar idea. Instead of just, how long have you volunteered here, maybe ask, what first drew you to support this particular cause and what keeps you motivated to come back?
Taps into their values, their why. Creates a deeper connection over that shared purpose.
Exactly. I was volunteering at a food bank once and noticed someone organizing donations really efficiently. I said, wow, your system here is incredibly effective. It must make a big difference. What do you find most rewarding about volunteering in this way?
Acknowledged their skill, asked about their fulfillment.
Yeah, built rapport really quickly. And finally, extending this to online communities, it needs a slightly different touch, often focusing on the shared digital interest or topic.
Right, left physical environment to draw on.
So instead of just liking a post or saying, that's interesting, maybe you respond with something like, I found your point about specific detail really insightful. Could you elaborate a bit on what led you to that conclusion?
Elevates it from a simple comment to a more thoughtful exchange.
Precisely. I was in an online forum about productivity tips once, and someone shared this really unusual method. Instead of just, cool idea, I wrote, that's a fascinating approach. I'd never thought of it like that. How did you first come across that method, and did you have any doubts before trying it?
And you got a better response.
Way better. A detailed personal story about how they developed it, the challenges, much more valuable than just an affirmation.
Okay, so adapting to the context is key.
Yeah.
Now, here's where I think it gets really interesting when you're trying to truly master small talk. It's not just about exchanging words, is it? It's about this subtle thing. Attunement. Pacing.
Yes. Attunement and pacing, that's a great way to put it. It goes beyond just mirroring someone's energy.
How so?
It's about consciously adjusting your own conversational rhythm, your emotional tone to kind of align with the other person's.
Okay, so if they're speaking slowly, thoughtfully.
You match that pace.
Yeah.
Allow for pauses, don't rush them. But if they're really enthusiastic, talking quickly.
You can gently bring your energy up a bit to meet them.
Exactly. This kind of mindful attunement creates this subconscious feeling of comfort, of being in sync. It makes the conversation feel much more natural.
Yeah, I can see that. I remember speaking with an expert at a conference recently. She spoke very calmly, deliberately, pausing for emphasis. And instead of jumping in, I consciously slowed my own speaking down, respected her pauses, and asked more measured questions. It felt like it allowed for a much deeper exchange than if I'd just rushed through my points.
That's perfect attunement in action. And connecting this to the bigger idea of social intelligence, it's so important to remember the power of curiosity, even if you know nothing about the topic.
Right. You don't have to be an expert on everything.
Absolutely not. In fact, sometimes asking a sincere, almost beginner question because you're genuinely interested is the best way to engage someone.
So someone's talking about, I don't know, astrophysics, and you know nothing.
Don't just nod blankly. Try something like, wow, that sounds incredibly complex and fascinating. What's maybe one common misconception people have about astrophysics? Or what's the most exciting thing happening in that field right now for a non-expert to understand?
Positions you as eager to learn, them as the knowledgeable one.
Exactly. It creates a natural, comfortable dynamic. I remember talking to a marine biologist once. My knowledge was zero, but I was curious.
What did you ask?
I asked, what's the most surprising creature you've ever encountered in the deep ocean, and what did learning about it teach you about life itself?
Wow, great question.
It led to this incredible, sprawling conversation about weird, deep-sea life and resilience. I learned so much, not because I knew anything, but just because I was genuinely curious.
That's powerful. And sometimes the best small talk doesn't even involve a direct question, right? Just comments or observations.
Absolutely. You can start and keep conversations going just by making insightful comments that invite a response.
So instead of always asking questions,
Try making a remark that hints at a shared feeling or a subtle insight instead of, is it going to rain? Maybe. The sky looks very dramatic today. Feels like a storm might be brewing.
or in a cafe, this place has such a unique atmosphere. I always wonder what inspires spaces like this.
Exactly. These observations are less direct, gentler. They create an opening for the other person to share their own thoughts without feeling interrogated. It fosters a more natural flow.
Okay. And as we're having these conversations, we should also be thinking about learning new language,
Sure.
right? Expanding vocabulary.
Definitely. This is a huge benefit, especially for language learners. As you master conversation, actively focus on vocabulary, not just studying lists, but learning through engagement.
So if you hear a new word or phrase,
Don't ignore it. Lean in with curiosity. Gently ask, that's an interesting phrase you used, hitting the ground running. Could you explain what that means in this situation? Or you mentioned synergy earlier. How would you define that practically?
asking for clarification.
Yeah, it clarifies it for you and it shows you're listening really attentively, that you want to understand deeply. It turns every single chat into a potential language lesson.
That's a great mindset. And finally, let's talk about the ultimate mindset for mastering small talk. It's okay if it's short, right? Embracing the micro-interaction.
Yes, the beauty of the micro-interaction. Small talk is not about becoming best friends in 5 minutes.
Or having some deep philosophical debate.
No, it's about the quality of that momentary connection. That subtle probe, that brief exchange that leaves both people feeling just a little bit more seen, a bit more comfortable.
So successful small talk chat could be just a minute or two, even less.
Absolutely. A few seconds sometimes, and that's perfectly fine. It's completely sufficient.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
It means every single interaction, no matter how brief it seems, is valuable practice. It's a win for your social skills, your confidence, and it subtly expands your personal world just a little bit each time.
Okay, so wrapping things up then. The core message of this deep dive is really that small talk, it's not trivial at all. It's actually a powerful, accessible, and pretty sophisticated tool to help you elevate your social interactions and improve your English.
A skill you can practice everywhere.
Everywhere. At work, in stores, the park, class, traveling.
Yeah.
And mastering it isn't about memorizing lines. It's about engaging authentically, adapting to the situation, and being genuinely curious about people.
Right. Not perfection, but connection.
Exactly. Connection itself.
Which brings up that important question again. How much can you really gain from these seemingly small interactions?
And the answer is,
Immeasurably. So much. Every conversation, no matter how short, is like valuable feedback. It helps you calibrate your social awareness, sharpen your listening, understand different viewpoints better, and get more comfortable expressing yourself.
so the more you do it with intention.
The easier and more intuitive it becomes, which then leads to potentially richer, longer conversations down the road. Every single exchange truly is a chance to become a more attuned, confident, and socially intelligent communicator, and a better English speaker.
So our final challenge to you, our listener, is this. The very next time you're in a situation where small talk is possible, waiting for coffee, at the gym, in line somewhere, take that deep breath, switch on your curiosity, and just give it a try.
Go for it.
Don't just talk. Observe what's happening around you. Don't just hear. Really listen to understand. Imagine the surprising things you might learn, the unexpected connections you could make. Think about the opportunities hidden in these everyday moments.
Yeah.
Because small talk ultimately isn't just about practicing English or filling time. It's about becoming a better observer of life, discovering new things about the world through the people you meet, and really just enriching your own life by feeling more connected to everyone around you.